What is going on, you guys? Welcome back. It is your boy Matt Talk Sports, and get ready to soak in and bask in with me right now. We are in week 14 of the NFL season. The first game of week 14 just wrapped up, and man, what an interesting result. It was the first playoff game we've had all year, and we are in week 14. So, shout out to the NFL for giving us our first playoff game in week 14 because it wasn't a playoff adjacent game. It was a playoff game because whoever lost this game would have had a less than 10% chance to make the playoffs. And we have the final result of that game, a high scoring game, kind of a definitive result. I wish it was a lot closer game than it was, but it is what it is. We had a lot of points, and fantasy owners of Jahmyr Gibbs continue to feel how great of a pick that was. So let's get into it. If you made this far in the video, leave a like, a comment, and subscribe right now at Matt Talk Sports. Follow me everywhere at Matt Talk Sports, Instagram and TikTok, and I'll see you there. Now let's get into it. The first game of Week 14, Lions versus Cowboys. The Cowboys fall to 6-1. Detroit moves to 8-5 and a much needed win, and now they're about like 45% chance to make the playoffs. Major win. Amon-Ra St. Brown, who we thought was going to be out for this game, he played in this game, and let's talk about it. So honestly, going into this game, I did think the Cowboys were going to win, but ultimately closer to game time, I did think the Lions were going to win. I did think the Cowboys were the better performing team, but parts of me did feel like now the lights are bright for Dallas. And despite the improvements on defense, the Lions, despite struggling play calling wise and offensively this year and not nearly being as effective of offense as they have been in the past 2 years, I did think this team had the chance to exploit Dallas for all the weaknesses that they have, particularly Jahmyr Gibbs, and that's what Jahmyr Gibbs did tonight. Let's talk about Dallas first. Dak Prescott, 31 of 47, took 5 sacks tonight. That O line that has been improved over the last year did struggle tonight against the front seven of the Lions that were angry and knew what they had to do to perform and win tonight. Like I said, Dak Prescott, 31 of 47, 376 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. Certainly wasn't his best game this year. He's been great this year, but tonight was definitely not his best game. The second pick, it was garbage time. They were really out of the game already. It was a great play by the defender. Javonte Williams, 17 to 67, 1 touchdown. CeeDee Lamb, he went out with a concussion, looked really bad. Hopefully he's good and plays the rest of the year. 621 yards. Ryan Flournoy, or Flournoy, I don't know how to pronounce his name. You got both of the iterations of that pronunciation. 9 of 115, 1 touchdown. Jake Ferguson, 5 for 58. George Pickens, 5 for 37. George Pickens had a quiet night, surprisingly. Um, Jake Ferguson with the fumble loss. Really, the Dallas defense got exploited tonight, despite the Lions O-line not being nearly as good as it's been these past 2 years. Only let up 1 sack tonight. So, despite Quentin Williams and Kenny Clark making a difference to this D-line these past couple weeks, they were relatively shut down tonight. Yeah, man. The Lions knew they had to win tonight, and Dallas, who's been riding off this tremendous high, wasn't able to keep up this tremendous high. Jared Goff, really efficient night tonight. He was really good. 25 or 34, 309 yards passing, 1 touchdown, only took 1 sack. David Montgomery, 6 for 60, 1 tud, averaging 10 yards a carry. Jahmyr Gibbs, 12 for 43 yards, 3 touchdowns. Great. The best back in the NFL. Really tremendous football player. Jameson Williams, 7 for 96. Amon-Ra, 6 for 92. Jahmyr Gibbs, 7 for 77. And Isaac Tesla, 2 touchdowns in 2 consecutive weeks, 2 for 21 tud. So the Detroit Lions exploited the weaknesses of the Dallas Cowboys defense, despite the Cowboys being improved somewhat on defense these past couple weeks. The weapons that the Lions had were able to exploit the Cowboys' weaknesses on defense. And honestly, this Detroit Lions defense, despite letting up 3 points tonight, really played their ass off. They got the stops early, and they did a really good job. Jack Campbell was terrific tonight. He was showing up on every play defensively. Uh, Al-Quadid Muhammad was great tonight. 3 sacks, terrific. Aiden Hutchinson was a monster tonight despite not getting a sack. This D-line of the Lions was bullying this Dallas O-line, and that was quite evident. So shout out to the Lions, Dan Campbell. He got his boys ready for a must-win game. And now, right now, for the Lions, is thin line of error. Like, you can't really commit an error on these next 4 weeks if you're a Lions. You have the Rams, Steelers, Vikings, and Bears. You have to at least go 3-1. And if you go 3-1, you might not make the playoffs still because of how good the Packers and the Bears have been. So really, you want to go 4-0, and that's going to be tough. The Cowboys, they're probably out of the playoffs unless the Eagles collapse tremendously. So who knows what's going to happen. Shout out to the Lions. They showed up and they haltered the hottest team in the NFL, arguably, in the Cowboys. Lions, they're not dead yet, and they proved that tonight. The Lions, they went 44-30 in a much, much, much needed win. Now we head on to the Sunday slate. And I talked about it a lot last video. In the first game I'll talk about during the slate because I will be there in attendance. Bengals versus Bills. I will be there in Highmark. My first time ever being in Highmark, as depressing as that might sound. I've been to 3 different Bills games, all of them in Miami. And yes, I don't live in Miami, I live in New York, so kind of weird that I've been to 3 Miami Dolphins versus Bills games. Never been to a game in New York, in Buffalo. But now is the first time. It has to be my first appearance in Highmark. It's the last year in Highmark, and I just have to go see the Bills play one time in Highmark before that stadium collapses. So let's get into it. This is a playoff adjacent game, and this is a major game for both sides. One, the Bills, we are in the wild card spot, and we're probably going to be in the wild card spot regardless of how well we finish this year. But this is a win you need because, listen, we have the Patriots after this. We have the Browns, Eagles, and Jets. I think we beat the Browns and Jets, but Patriots and Eagles are very tough games. So you do want to leave room for error if you win this game, and which I think we will. But this is a major game. We have never beaten Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is 2-0 against us. I'm not counting the DeMar Hamlin game, so he's just 2-0 against us. And Joe Burrow is back, and he looked really good against the Ravens. I don't care what the stat line, the completion percentage told you. He was terrific in that Ravens game. And the Ravens haven't been good this year. They were starting to improve on defense, and he tore apart that defense, in my opinion. Ja'Marr Chase is back. Obviously, he was suspended before the Ravens game. He's back. He looks really great. He looked great last week. T. Higgins is questionable. I'm going to assume he's going to play. That's really the biggest what if for the Bengals because Trey Henderson is doubtful for the Sunday game. The Bills, AJ Epinesa is questionable. Bosa is questionable. Bernard is questionable. Palmer and Kincaid are questionable. I assume Bosa or Epinesa play. I don't know if both do. I assume Terrell Bernard plays, but even if he doesn't, I'm confident in Shaq Thompson. And I'm going to assume Kincaid doesn't play this week because he's wearing a brace now. I assume Palmer plays. So from here on out, I'm talking like T. Higgins is going to play, and I'm talking like Bosa and at least Palmer are going to play. So here are my thoughts on Bills versus Cincinnati as I will be in attendance. I can't wait for this game. As I said, we have never beaten Joe Burrow, and honestly, they kind of own us. I mean, the second game was kind of close, but not really until it was too late. 18-24, I believe that game was. And man, it's funny because I actually really trust our secondary. It's funny because of the debacle we had this week with Darius Slay. We released Jamarcus Ingram after picking up Darius Slay on waivers after the Steelers released him. And now Darius Slay doesn't know if he wants to fucking play or not. So now we're down realistically 2 corners because Darius Slay doesn't want to play and Jamarcus Ingram just got picked up by the Texans. That's a debacle, but honestly, I trust our secondary with Benford, Taron Johnson, Cam Lewis, Maxwell, Hairston, and Trey White as of right now. I think that unit has been playing really good, and I think Christian Benford is coming off the best game of his entire season. So Christian Benford is hot, the secondary is hot, and listen, obviously we know the Bengals is having this high-powered offensive passing game with Burrow, Chase, and Higgins. They actually have a sneaky good run game over these past couple of weeks. Obviously, the Bills have a way more dominant run game, but Chase Brown has been cooking for the Bengals these past couple of weeks. And honestly, this might be the best O-line Burrow has ever had. The past 3 weeks, we'll actually go 4 of the past 5 games. Against the Jets, Chase Brown has 12 for 73 yards, 6.1 yards a carry. Against the Pittsburgh Steelers, Chase Brown had 18 carries, 99 yards, 5.5 yards a carry. New England Patriots, 19 for 107 yards, 5.6 yards a carry. And against the Ravens, 15 for 78, 5.2 yards a carry. So he's been cooking running the ball. So it's kind of crazy. Burrow has the best O-line he's had, and now they can run the ball, which is going to open up the pass. So I'm really worried about that, especially when you have the best wide receiver duo in the NFL when they are healthy. And Ja'Marr Chase is the best receiver in the NFL, in my opinion, outside Justin Jefferson and Jackson Smith-Njigba and Puka Nacua. He's been great. Out of three of the past 5 games, he has 100-plus yards, at least 110. So he's cooking, and he's great, and we know how great he is. And I am going to assume this game is going to be a shootout because the Bengals can run the ball and they could pass the ball almost better or at par with anyone else in the league. So Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Joe Burrow are a scary sight. And now they have a good old line, relatively. And now they got a pretty goddamn good running game, it feels like. So I am extremely worried about that. Despite me trusting our secondary, I don't trust our running defense. I know our defense has been improving these past couple weeks. Despite the Texans' result, they were really good in the second half. They limited the Texans to like 32 net yards. And the Steelers game, obviously, we shut them out, except for James Cook putting them into great position to score a touchdown. So I am still worried about this rushing defense. I mean, we're 30th in the NFL in rush defense. The Bengals are actually 31st in rush defense. So that is the silver lining. I do think this game is going to be who turns the ball over and time of possession. Because honestly, like, listen, Josh Allen, love him. I think he's the best quarterback in the NFL. Turnovers have been an issue past 4 of the 5 games. He has thrown, what, 6 picks in the past 4 games. So that is something you cannot do in this game. Do not throw a pick. And I think he has at least a fumble. So as great as he is and as great as he can be, he has struggled holding onto the ball this year. So I don't want to see turnovers this Sunday, which is a hard task. This Bengals defense isn't a good one. They're going to be without their best player, but they've been sneakingly all right these past couple weeks, facing similar offenses to the Buffalo Bills. Now, the Ravens haven't looked good on offense recently, so that's fair, and this is the best offense the Bengals have faced in this 4 or 5 game stretch outside of the Patriots. So we should be good as long as we don't turn the ball over, which is a tough ask with how Josh Allen has been unable to keep the ball in our possession. So, listen, so we don't turn the ball over. We control the time of possession. We make this defense tired of the Bengals with running the ball, play action, playing hard-nosed football with his O-line. Hopefully Deion Dawkins is back. If he isn't, that's kind of worrisome. And Spencer Brown, not bad, kind of worrisome. But honestly, let those boys rest because the placements we had in for them last week did a good enough job in Alec Anderson and Ryan Vandermark. So even if Ryan Vandermark and Alec Anderson play, I'm still confident because we run the ball the best in the NFL, and James Cook is a top 3 running back in the NFL. So no turnovers and time of possession is the way to win this game, and exploiting the weaknesses of this Bengals defense, which they're 31st in rush defense. They can't stop the run, and honestly, their secondary isn't scary, and they're without their best defensive player. So I think we have the better defense slightly, and I think we can run the ball down the throat and control time possession. I do want to see more QB design runs for Josh Allen this week because we saw that quite a bit in the Steelers game, and I think that is a really great formula for this week. I think running the ball, playing hard-nosed football, playing physical football, and then also running the ball so well that we're opening up the pass game to hit guys like Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, and hopefully Dalton Kincaid and Josh Palmer. But who knows? Those dudes are injured this year. They can't stay on the field. And honestly, if I'm on the Bengals defense, I don't really fear anybody passing the ball. So honestly, what I would do if I'm the Bengals, I'm stacking the box. And honestly, even if they stack the box, I think the Bills have a path to victory and they can still run the ball quite effectively. So if I'm the Bengals, I'm stacking the box and saying, hey, beat me with the pass, because honestly, the passing game hasn't looked so pretty for the Buffalo Bills. So to say I'm confident in this game would be an overstatement because I am not confident. In fact, I am kind of iffy on this game. I think the line for this game is too big. And I do think the total for this game makes a lot of sense because it's going to be a shootout. If you don't think Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins and Chase Brown aren't going to do tremendous stuff against us this weekend, then you haven't seen previous Bengals and Bills matchups because Joe Burrow kind of owns us. And this Bengals team, despite them being 4-8, with Joe Burrow, they are one of the best teams in the NFL, in my opinion. Certainly have one of the best offenses in the NFL. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins might destroy us this weekend. So we have to keep up with the scoring. We have to not turn the ball over, and time possession has to be in our favor. We have to make this Bengals defense tired. We have to have long possessions. So if the Bengals do score at will, like I think they might, the defense will come back on the field for the Bengals, but they will be tired, and the Bills will be able to take advantage of that and out physical them. And I think that's the path of victory. Time possession, no turnovers, and running the ball so much that we're tiring this banged up Bengals defense. So I think the Bengals cover. I think they cover the +6.5. And I think this is a shootout. I think this is a nail biter. I think this is one of the best games of the year. And I'm going to be in attendance for it. I get to see Burrow versus Josh Allen live on Sunday. How blessed am I? That is terrific. I can't wait to see it go down. I'm worried for this game. I think the Bengals might win, but I'm going with the Bills. I'm trusting Josh Allen not to turn the ball over. I'm trusting James Cook and company not to turn the ball over, and I'm trusting this O line and James Cook to run the ball down the throats of the Bengals and to finally beat Joe Burrow. I'm scared of Jamar Chase. I'm scared of Burrow. I'm scared of T. Higgins because those dudes are tremendous. So hopefully T. Higgins doesn't go. But even if he does go, I think we'll be good. I think we will be able to get some pressure on Joe Burrow despite the limitations we have in depth right now on our D line. And I think, listen, this is his second game back. As good as he looked against the Ravens, we're in Buffalo. I think we can turn up the intensity and make him look like he's in the second game back. So let's go Bills. I think the Bengals cover plus 6.5. I think this is a nail biter, but I do think the Bills squeak out a victory here. And honestly, if I wasn't a Bills fan and if I didn't know this team so well, I think I would bet the Bengals here because they have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Burrow who is back. And this Bills team, despite me being confident in them going into the playoffs if we get there, they haven't looked that great this year, particularly on defense at times and particularly on offense at times. So Bengals are very much live here. They're undefeated against us, and honestly, they have the personnel and the players to beat us. So Bengals cover plus 6.5. This game goes over, and this is a nail biter. Let's go, Bills. Control the time of possession. Make this Bengals defense tired, and let's see Superman activated against Joe Burrow. Because Josh Allen, I know you're amped. Last week, Cam Hayward was talking all that shit to you, trying to press you. I have a feeling Josh Allen's going to go into this game angry and pissed off, realizing this is a big game, realizing the sense of urgency, and realizing he needs to beat Joe Burrow for the first time in his career. Because honestly, as good as our defense looked last week and as greatly as we ran the ball last week, there were times during that game where I think we looked like dog shit. And I think the Steelers weren't able to capitalize off us looking like dog shit. So if we play like we did against the Steelers in the first half this week, we are fucked and we're losing this game. So don't play like the first half of last week. Play like how you did in the second half. Open it up a little bit more like you can against this really bad and banged up Cincinnati Bengals defense, and we win this game. It's going to be a battle. It's going to be till the end of this game. It might end on a field goal by Prater. It's going to be a shootout. It might be like 30-27 Bills. This is a great game. I can't wait to see it in person. It's going to be the best game of the day, and I'm glad I'm going to have eyes on it from the stands. So I think the Bills win 30-27, and I think James Cook has like 2 to 3 touchdowns Sunday. So let's go Bills. Get a win for me in person. I'm 2-1, I think, seeing the Bills live. So hopefully I leave 3-1 instead of 2-2 because I would hate that. So let's go Bills. Let's get the big win. Let's beat Bro for the first time, and let's add some pressure to everyone in the hunt in the AFC playoffs. Moving on. I won't have eyes on these games too much, so when I do the recap of these games on Sunday, when I get back home, a lot of these games I will be seeing on the scoreboard at Highmark, or I will be seeing on the way back home on highlights and stuff of that nature. So keep that in mind on my recap on Sunday night. But anyway, Dolphins versus Jets. Dolphins, one of the hottest teams in the NFL right now. They have been cooking these past couple weeks. They're 3-0 in their past four. They won 4 of their last 5. They've been really good recently, and Mike McDaniel might have kept his job for next season. They've been that good. The Jets coming off a big win last week at home against the Falcons. They're home here again. Jets are 3-9. Dolphins are 5-7. And listen, Tua Tagovailoa was bad last week. Maybe the stat line won't tell you that definitively, but he was bad if you watched him last week and you watched with your eyes. He was bad last week. The over for this game is 41.5. This game is going under. This is going to be a defensive game. And honestly, I'm going with the better defense here. I think the Miami Dolphins have looked pretty good on defense these past couple weeks. And honestly, the Jets, I think they do have the path of victory to control the time of possession and run the ball pretty goddamn well with Breece Hall. But I do think this Miami Dolphins defense is better. And I do think their offense is way better than the Jets. And Tyrod Taylor looked good last week. It's the best the Jets offense looked last week, but I think that was an anomaly. And I think the Jets, after this week, continued their hunt to the first pick of the NFL draft. If the Titans somehow scrap up 2 victories, but I doubt the Titans will. So I do think the Dolphins win this game. I think Achane and Waddle get them over the hump offensively this week. And I think their defense, which has been a pretty strong unit recently, gets them over the hump this week as well. I think the Miami Dolphins win in New Jersey, and I think the Jets they fall 3-10. I think the Miami Dolphins move to 6-7, which is pretty crazy. Kids, don't go crazy over 6-7 because listen, I know 6-7 is a big epidemic, but Miami Dolphins fans, get ready to hear your whole fan base saying 6-7 after you move to 6-7 this week. Moving on. Steelers versus Ravens. The Ravens are -5.5 favorites in Baltimore. This is a big, big game for the AFC North. The Steelers coming off a loss to the Buffalo Bills at home. They got embarrassed. They've lost 2 in a row. Will Mike Tomlin lose 3 in a row? And will he lose 4 of his last 5? Because their last one was against the Bengals, and they lost 3 of their last 4. So the Steelers, they're in dire need of a win, and the Ravens are coming off a loss to the Bengals. They haven't looked good prior to that, and how badly they looked accumulated in that game against the Bengals with Joe Burrow's first game back. So this is a big game for Ravens versus Steelers, and if the Steelers lose this game, they're done. They're done. I assume Aaron Rodgers is going to play this week and tough it out because he's a tough son of a bitch. Whether you like him personally or whether you like him as a player, he's a tough son of a bitch. And listen, I don't think this Steelers defense is good. Patrick Queen is questionable. Joey Porter Jr. is questionable. And Kyle Duggar's questionable. Lamar's questionable for the Ravens. I assume he plays this big game. Nate Wiggins is questionable for the Ravens. Rashad Bateman's questionable for the Ravens. This is a tremendously big game. And despite the Ravens not looking good these past couple weeks, I am picking the Ravens to get the win in Baltimore. It is a must-win game, like Marlon Humphrey said. Lamar Jackson, you've looked bad these past 4 or 5 weeks. It's been really tragic to watch you. I know you're battling with injury, but play better, man. If you don't play better than Aaron Rodgers this week significantly, there's a problem. Lamar Jackson, you gotta show up this week. I don't care that you're injured. Everyone's injured at this point of the season, so you need to show up this week. You guys need to give Derrick Henry the ball because the Steelers are coming off a game where they let up the most rush yards at home ever in the history of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So if Lamar and Derrick Henry and Keaton Mitchell don't combine for like 35 carries plus, the Ravens are just losing it schematically and offensively because why wouldn't you do that after seeing what the Bills did to the Steelers last week? Now, the Bills had 2 of their tackles out last week, but the Bills' O-line probably is better than the Ravens, even with 2 backups at their tackles. So I assume Derrick Henry and Keaton Mitchell and Lamar Jackson will be running the ball quite a bit this week. If the Ravens can't run the ball this week, then the Steelers are going to be live. Like, listen, I assume the Steelers are angry coming off a loss like that. So there will be some spirited fight from the Steelers this week. But, man, I do not trust that Steelers offense at all. And I think the Ravens defense, despite not being great, is a good enough defense to stop what the Steelers are putting out on offense recently. DK Metcalf playing like a wide receiver 2, and honestly, the rest of the weapons they have just being not scary in the slightest. Aaron Rodgers, he looks his age, and the running game they got is almost non-existent at this point. So give me the Ravens. They run the ball. They tire out the Steelers defense, and the Steelers continue to have a very depressing season. Ravens, they moved to 7-6. The Steelers, they moved to 6-7. Moving on. The Saints, Tyler Shuck getting some love on NFL Twitter this week and NFL TikTok. A lot of great highlights that showed of him last week. He did look pretty good in some spots against the Miami Dolphins, and honestly, he's made some really good throws since he's been the starter of the New Orleans Saints. And honestly, he's been a better quarterback than Spencer Rattler. As much as that hurts me because I do like Spencer Rattler, Tyler Shuck was a better quarterback, and I'm not saying they found something in Tyler Shuck definitively, but they might have found something. So I'm curious how this game turns out because they're facing the Tampa Bay Bucks. And the last time the Saints played the Tampa Bay Bucks this year, it was a slaughter. The Bucks didn't score a touchdown on offense. Their defense scored like 1 or 2 defensive touchdowns, I forget. But the defense of the Tampa Bay Bucks was destroying that poor Saints offense. And I think the similar thing is going to happen despite the improvement at quarterback by Tyler Shuck. Olave's questionable. Kamara's questionable. The tackle for the Saints is questionable. Mike Evans, he might return Sunday, but I doubt it. I think he waits another week or so. Wirfs is questionable, but I think Wirfs plays. I don't think Evans or McMillan play. I think they play next week. But I think this game is probably similar to the first Saints game. I think the Bucks defense, despite being a little bit injured, I think they do damage on the Saints offense that is young. And I think Baker Mayfield and company, despite struggling offensively last time against the Saints, I think that's the opposite this week. And I think the Bucks offense, despite last time's outcome against the Saints defense, has a good appearance this week with Bucky Irvin back. Bucky Irvin, Rashad White, that offensive line, and then Baker, Emeka, and Chris Godwin, who's getting healthier by the week. I think they show up quite heavily this week. And I think they score at least 2 to 3 touchdowns on offense, which might not sound crazy, but it's crazy if you watch the last game the Saints and Bucks played. So give me the Bucks, give me their slightly healthier offense, and give me their defense, who absolutely dominated the Saints offense last time out. So give me the Bucks. They moved to 8-5. They get a much needed win, and the Saints they fall to 2-11. Moving on to a really really big game, a playoff adjacent game because the Colts they are dwindling after starting off hot and being one of the best teams in the NFL. They've lost 3 of their last 4, and it's getting late early for the Colts. It's getting hot. It's getting congested. The Texans are winning. The Jags are winning. Jags are playing some of the best ball this year that they've played, and I know who I like in this game. I really do. I know the Jags played the Titans last week, but there's some things I saw from the Jaguars last week where I'm like, yeah, I like this. I like the additions you guys made here. I like the addition of Jacoby Myers. I like the two-headed tiny monster of Etienne and Tootin. Trevor Lawrence looked pretty good last week. And honestly, like I said all year, this defense of the Jags is opportunistic. And honestly, I feel very, very confident in this Jags offense against the depleted defense of the Colts. No Sauce Gardner this week. DeForest Buckner's on the IR, and they're missing a linebacker. So this is a depleted Colts team, and it already wasn't one of the best units in the NFL, despite getting healthier with Travarius Ward. Sauce Gardner, who they paid all those picks for, is injured, so he's not playing this week. So now the newest addition of Jacoby Myers, the return of BJJ, who had his warm-up game last week against the Titans, and Parker Washington, who's emerged as a very compatible wide receiver 3. So now you have Jacoby Myers, now you have BTJ, now you have Parker Washington. And then you have the very underrated tight end in Jacksonville, Brenton Strange. So I like Brian Thomas Jr. I like Parker Washington. I like Brenton Strange. And I really like Jacoby Myers. So that receiving core they got right there is going to exploit this very damaged defensive unit of the Colts. But honestly, I will say this. I want to see how Jonathan Taylor looks this week because, listen, the start of this year, he was absolutely cooking. And it's not like he went tremendously downhill, but these last 2 games, he's been underwhelming. And honestly, 3 of the past 4 games, he's been underwhelming. Now, the Titans, he had 153 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns. Against the Falcons, he had 244 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. The Pittsburgh Steelers game, he had 14 carries of 45 yards, 3.2 yards a carry. The Chiefs game, he had 16 for 58, 3.6 yards a carry, 0 touchdowns. And then against the Texans, he had 21 carries for 85 yards. And really, he was boggled down, and he's been boggled down 3 of the past 4 games he's played. So this is a big game for Jonathan Taylor and the offensive line of the Colts. Really, I think the Jaguars are going to stack the box. Now, I think Alex Pierce is a pretty good wide receiver. I think Josh Downs is a pretty good wide receiver, and I think Michael Pittman is a pretty good wide receiver. And in fact, I want Alex Pierce to be a Buffalo Bill next year, but that's beside the point. I think the Jaguars' game plan here is to stack the box, mainly because Daniel Jones is dealing with a pretty much broken leg or a broken fibula. I don't know exactly what's going on there, but stack the box, stop the run, and force Daniel Jones to beat you, and force Daniel Jones to beat you, who is lacking mobility, which is sneakily one of the best aspects of his game. So you're facing an immobile Daniel Jones, and you're facing an offensive line of Jonathan Taylor that hasn't looked that good the past 2 games. So Jaguars, with this opportunistic defense, I think will be able to force some turnovers, and I think they'll be able to stymie a Colts offense that has slowed down these past couple weeks. And I think this Jaguars offense will be able to exploit this banged up Colts defense. So give me Jacoby Myers, Brian Thomas Jr., Parker Washington, Trevor Lawrence, Etienne, Tootin, and Liam Cohen to beat this Colts team. And I think the Colts fall to 8-5, and I think the Jaguars they move to 9-4, and the Colts. They were looking like the best offense statistically of all time earlier this year. They had a firm lead in the AFC South, and they had a firm lead as the number 1 seed in the AFC. Now you're going to fight for a playoff spot, and it's going to get dirty. It's going to get grimy. And are the Colts made for that? That's yet to be seen. But I think the Jags win here as underdogs at home. They move to 9-4. And the Colts, they fall to 8-5, and they now have lost 3 in a row. Moving on. The game that no one gives a shit about. I hate to be so frank, but all the other games we have this Sunday, who cares about this game except for the 2 teams, fan bases that are playing in this game? The Titans are 1-11, the Browns are 3-9, and usually in a spot like this, you want to pick the underdog in a matchup of 2 of the worst teams in the NFL. But honestly, the Titans are so bad, you can't put your hard-earned money on them. They're plus 180, plus 4.5, and the over-under for this game is 33.5. That's how shitty of a game this is. Myles Garrett needs 4 sacks for the NFL single season record. Can he do it against this really bad O-line of the Titans? I think he could. This is a tough game, man. I'm going to be honest here, man. This Titans offense hasn't looked good all year. Their defense has actually looked good in spots. This Browns offense didn't look good at all last week against a banged up defense. And honestly, I know the 49ers, they always play above their abilities and they always play above the injuries they're facing. And they are really well coached, but that was a really disappointing offensive outing and coaching display from Stefanski last week. Um, this is a tough game. As much as I want to pick the Titans and pick the underdog in this matchup, give me the better defense going against a really bad offense that can't get the ball going at all. I think Cam Ward struggles, and I believe Shedeur Sanders starting this week for the Browns. I think Shedeur Sanders probably doesn't have a good day at all because I don't really think he's a good quarterback. But hopefully, he does a good enough job and he doesn't play bad that he gets another week starting. I think this Titans defense, despite probably being unmotivated watching their offense play all week, but I think that Titans defense is a pretty alright defense, and I think they will cause problems for Shedeur Sanders. But I think the Titans offense will struggle more against this really good Browns defense. Judkins will probably get a touchdown because if the Browns somehow get within the 10-yard line, that's the only way they can score, really. Maybe Harold Fanning Jr. and Njoku. But honestly, this might be the first game of the NFL season where no touchdowns are scored. If there's a way for me to bet that, I might bet that. Because I don't see a touchdown being scored in this game. I think this game might be like 6-9 Browns. So give me the Cleveland Browns. They moved to 4-9, and the Titans, they fall to 1-12, and they probably have the number one pick locked. Moving on to another game no one really cares about. I'm pretty sure J.J. McCarthy's going to get the start here. And it's interesting. And I don't know if Jaden Daniels is going to play. I assume he doesn't because why would you play him? This is meaningless football. It's not like you're the Bengals and you could possibly get into the playoffs. So I wouldn't play Jaden Daniels at all because the NFC is stacked. And honestly, despite the Vikings not being good this year, you're playing a pretty good defense. So you don't want him to get hurt. Vikings versus Commanders. The Commanders are coming off a very spirited fight against the Broncos last week. And Vikings, despite having a really good defense, they don't have twice the defense or nearly as good as a defense as the Broncos. So this is a very interesting matchup. The Commanders are heading into Minnesota, a very tough place to play. Marcus Mariota is probably going to play instead of Jaden Daniels. And then you have Debo and Terry McLaurin, who Terry McLaurin looked really good last week, and Debo Samuel's been pretty good in his role for the Commanders this year. This is a really, really interesting game. Jaden McCarthy's going to play, man, or Max Brosmer. And honestly, I don't care who's playing out of those two. You got to fade both of them. I will not trust my pick or my money on the Vikings. And I'm going to pick the Commanders here because of how they looked last week, which is probably square because that was probably a one-off incident for this Commanders team, which is probably looking to quit at this point in time in their season. But honestly, what Dan Quinn showed me as a head coach and what those players showed me fighting for their team, despite having a 3-8 record, was impressive to me. And I think that type of performance carries over to next week. And I think they were rewarded for their hard overtime outing against the Broncos last week. So give me the Washington Commanders and Marcus Mariota, I assume, and Terry McLaurin and Debo Samuel over this Max Brosmer or J.J. McCarthy-led Vikings team. And I know this Vikings defense is good or whatever. They had a really good outing against the Seahawks last week, but the more this defense has to watch their offense play, I don't think they're going to start having the same fight as they usually do. So give me the Commanders in a hard victory against the Vikings, and I think J.J. McCarthy, he's going to realize his time is dwindling. So Commanders, they win. They move to 4-9, and the Vikings, they fall to 4-9. Moving on, Kirk Cousins versus potentially the best defense in the NFL, maybe behind the Broncos, the Seahawks. The Seattle Seahawks, 9-3, heading to Atlanta. The Atlanta Falcons are 4-8, coming off a loss against the New Jersey Jets, and the Seahawks are coming off a 25-3 victory over the Vikings, or a 26-0 victory over the Vikings. They shut out the Vikings. That's how good this defense is. And honestly, last week the offense for the Seahawks struggled. I mean, they really did. JSN couldn't get it going. Sam Darnold got sacked 4 times. That O-line I was worried about heading into the year started to show itself this past week. They didn't really run the ball that well. They didn't really pass the ball that well, but luckily their defense is so good. Sam Darnold fumbled the ball twice last week. So luckily their defense was really great last week, and I think their defense is going to play a big part into this victory. And the Falcons just let up 24 points to the Jets. So I know this is probably going to sound square, and I know this is probably going to sound like chalk, but I really have a hard time seeing the Falcons beat the Seahawks this week. I just do. I know their Falcons defense is gamey. I know their rush is really good with Pierce and Jalen Walker. I actually like this defense of the Falcons quite a bit. I think their front seven is really good. I think their secondary is underrated. But I think the Seahawks offense is really good. And despite Kenny Walker being questionable, and despite that weird offensive outing from the Seahawks last week, I think they get back going here. I think JSN has a big day, and I think the variety in the offense reigns supreme here. I think they run the ball well. I think they pass the ball well this week. And honestly, despite me picking the Seahawks here, I do think the spread is a little bit too much after watching the Seahawks perform last week offensively. I do think +7 is a good number to get the Falcons, but obviously would I be surprised if the Seahawks blew out the Falcons? Absolutely not. But I will be picking +7 for the Falcons. They're at home. Their defense is pretty good. And I think the O-line started to show some of his true colors last week and who they really are. I think Bradford was really bad last week for him. He's questionable, so hopefully he plays. But honestly, if he doesn't play, it might be the same production he was giving them anyway. So I think the Falcons defense keeps them in this game a little bit, but ultimately the defense of the Seahawks hinders this really, really well made statue of Kirk Cousins. And I think the Falcons have a tough day. Now, Drake London might play, so that would be a big difference. So if Drake London can play, that would be interesting because Kirk Cousins has a good chemistry with Darnell Mooney and Sills. So I think if London plays, that opens up the offense for the Falcons quite a bit. And I think obviously they have Bijan Robinson. So this might be a closer game than we expect, but I think the Seahawks still win because they have the better offense, they have the better defense, and they have the better head coaching. +7.5 Falcons and give me the Seahawks to win. That's probably gonna be a closer game than we all think, but Seahawks are the better team. They should get the win there, but it's the NFL. Any given Sunday, don't be surprised if the Falcons somehow win that game. But obviously, I got the Seahawks. Moving on to the 4 o'clock slate. What a shitty game this is. We'll get the bad ones out the game. We'll get the bad ones out the way first. The Broncos are heading into Las Vegas. The Raiders, worst O-line in the NFL. They're +7.5. Over-unders 40.5. The Broncos, 10-2, coming off a hard-fought battle against the Commanders. Now, Broncos play down to their opponents. They just do. So part of me is like, maybe I pick +7.5 Raiders to be cute, but honestly, this O-line for the Raiders is so bad, I don't see how the Broncos play down to their opponent here. The Commanders' O-line is definitely way better than this O-line of the Raiders, and I think Benito and company are going to cause Geno Smith to see ghosts and force the ball over to the other team quite a bit here. And I think Ashton Jeanty is going to have a hard time running the ball. I think this is a nightmare day for the Raiders, and I think the Broncos defense abuses this O-line of the Raiders. I think Ashton Jeanty can't run the ball, and I think Geno Smith can't throw the ball in this situation. So I think the Broncos might be able to shut out the Raiders here. After coming off a nail-biter Sunday Night Football last weekend, I think the Broncos win this game whichever way they want. I think the starters will be out by the end of the third quarter. And I think the Broncos absolutely obliterate the Raiders, and they mishandle. And I think Benito might have like 3 to 4 sacks this upcoming weekend. Like I think the Raiders are that bad. So give me the Broncos. They moved to 11-2, and the Raiders they fall to 2-13. They continue to be one of the most embarrassing teams this year. I feel bad for Ashton Jeanty and Geno Smith. They have no help with that O line, and honestly, the receiving core for the Raiders is just abysmal without Jacoby Myers. Brock Bowers is really good though, probably the best tight end in the NFL. Moving on, we have the Rams versus Cardinals. Another big spread game. The Rams are -8.5 against the Cardinals in Arizona. This is a weird game. The Rams are coming off a really tough loss against the Panthers in Carolina. They travel to the East Coast. They're really playing on 9 a.m. Pacific time. Bryce Young destroyed this defense and might have shown holes in this Rams defense that has otherwise been terrific this year. So maybe it was a one-off instance, or maybe this was a glimpse into how the Rams don't make it to the Super Bowl this year. Really interesting game. I think they bounce back, though. Listen, I like the Cardinals. I actually think they have a gritty offense, and I actually think they have a gritty defense. They performed pretty well against the Bucs offense. It was really just the Cardinals who couldn't get it going against the Bucs defense last week. The Bucs defense showed up. The Cardinals can't run the ball as well with Bam Knight and Michael Carter as they were able to run it with James Conner. I actually really like Jacoby Brissett and this pass protection they got when Jacoby Brissett is passing the ball, despite him getting banged up a little bit last week. I actually do like this offense of the Cardinals. I like Trey McBride. I like Marvin Harrison, who is questionable heading into this game. And I like Michael Wilson, who has been really solid as a wide receiver number 1 up until last week. The Bucs fully locked him down last week. With that being said, the Rams are pissed off. They're playing on the West Coast, and they're gonna just obliterate this Cardinals team. And I think the Rams defense plays way better than they did last week. And despite Devontae Adams and Kyron Williams being questionable, I assume they play. I think they do play. Even if they didn't play, I have confidence in Stafford, and I think Stafford makes this MVP race slightly closer this week again. So give me the Rams, bounce back victory. Hard to see them lose two in a row, and I think they cover. I think they cover the -8.5, and I think the Cardinals just meet the fate that they've had all year. I think they fall right back into poverty and mediocrity. They fall to 3-10. The Rams, they move to 10-3. Moving on to the final 4 o'clock game and one of the biggest games of the year. I'm really curious with this game, honestly, man, because the Bears have been over exceeding and they've looked really good these past few weeks. The Bears have won 5 games in a row. Their last loss was against the Ravens. They had 2 losses to start the year. Last time they lost was against the Ravens on October 26th. So they've been in shootouts, they've been in tough outings, and they won. So this is a really interesting game, but honestly, I think the Packers are picking up steam at the right time. The Packers looked really good last week, man. Jordan Love looked really good last week. Dontavian Wicks is questionable for the Packers this week. Jaden Reed is predicted to come off the IR this week. Who knows if he plays this week? If he does, that adds a whole different element to this receiving core of the Packers. Monangai is questionable for the Bears. Odunze is questionable for the Bears. Tyreek Stevenson is questionable. So is TJ Edwards. So this is interesting. So I'm going to assume Odunze and Monangai play. I'm going to assume Dontavian Wicks plays as well. This is really interesting. The whole line of the Bears looked really improved, man. Like, they have been really improved this year. They're probably the most improved unit of the entire NFL as it pertains to this season, because last year they were abysmal. But now this O-line looks really, really good. The Packers, on the other hand, have played down to their opponents. They played up to their opponents this year. It's been a really inconsistent and eerie year for the Packers. I can't get a full grasp of their team, and I really can't get a full grasp of the Bears. I think they're just a team that's ahead of their schedule, and they're over-exceeding and overperforming right now, which is a great sign of things to come in the future. But I think the Packers are reaching a really good momentum right now, and they're on 10 days rest. The Bears, they're on 9 days rest, so it's similar in rest. This is in Green Bay, though, so I have to assume the Packers win this game by 3 or less, and I assume the Bears cover because this is a division game. Ben Johnson, his play calling is hard to overlook. I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think it's going to be a gritty game. And honestly, I'm going to be honest here. I think what the Panthers did to the Packers a couple weeks back is going to be similar to what the Bears can do against the Packers this week. But I think the Packers are much more improved right now than they were facing the Panthers. What the Panthers did against the Packers a few weeks back. Dowdle had 25 carries for 130 yards, 2 touchdowns. Overall, 33 carries, 163 yards, rushing 4.9 yards a carry, on 2 touchdowns against the Packers rushing. As we all know, running the ball well opens up the pass game. So listen, this O-line for the Bears is really improved, and that two-headed monster they got with Swift and Monangai is really good, and it's really potent run offense. It's looked like one of the best run offenses in the NFL these past couple weeks. They have been able to run the ball, and that is a really good trait to have during the cold. And yes, this Bears defense has been playing really good. The rush looked really good against the pass last week. The ability to turn the ball over has been really, really prominent this year for this Bears defense. This is a tough game. I think the Bears can run the ball really well, and I'm just going with the Packers here. I think the Bears cover plus 6.5. I think this is a close game. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bears won in Lambeau. I think the Bears can replicate what the Panthers did to them in a low-scoring game a few weeks back, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Bears won this game due to the running ability of their offense. I think the O-line is really good run blocking wise. Tooney has been unreal for them, and I think Monangai and Swift have been really good. I think the momentum of the Packers right now is heavily in their favor. They're playing at home. It's going to be cold. I know the Chicago Bears are used to the cold as well. Give me LaFleur over Ben Johnson right now. I think some of the comments Ben Johnson had in the offseason towards the Packers might play into the motivations of the Packers heading into this game. I think the Packers win in a close game. I think this is a 3-point game. I think their defense has been playing better. I think it's a much improved defense since that Panthers game. And despite the Bears being able to run the game quite well in this game, I think they won't be able to run it well enough to win. And I think Caleb Williams struggles this game. Give me the Packers to win this game in a very close game and one of the best games of the day and one of the most significant games of the day when it pertains to the playoffs. So I think the Bears come back down to earth this week. And I think the Packers get a major win here. They move to 9-3-1, and the Bears they fall to 9-4. And what a game! What a big game for the NFC. And I think the Packers look really good. I think Micah Parsons might end up being the player of the game. And honestly, I really like how Jordan Love has been playing these past couple weeks. So I trust Jordan Love, I trust Matt LaFleur, and I trust this Packers defense more than I do this Bears team at the moment, which might come back to bite me because they've been running the ball really good these past few weeks. And honestly, the play calling for the Bears has been pretty impressive. And honestly, the defense has been impressive as well. So maybe this is my last week down on the Bears, but give me the Packers. I think I like them right now. I think their momentum is starting to build and reach heights that they've been looking forward to. So, moving on to the final game of the Sunday slate, a really, really, really great game. Monumental game. Chiefs versus Texans. The Texans are hot. One of the hottest teams in the NFL. They're on a 4-game win streak. They won 5 of their last 6. They looked incredible recently, specifically on defense. They've been causing terror to teams all around the league, and this is the biggest game of their season so far. They can start to close in the lead on the division. The Jaguars, if they win Sunday, or the Colts, they win Sunday, they're still in the lead. But the Texans, they can really make this division theirs with a win here and put fear into their division counterparts. Um, I love this game. I think this is a really big game for the Chiefs. This is obviously a must win for the Chiefs. They're in a similar situation to the Lions. I mean, if they lose this game, their playoff odds drop drastically. One of the biggest things about this game is how banged up the Chiefs are heading into this game on the offensive line. Josh Simmons is on the IR. That was the left tackle. The right tackle, Jawan Taylor, might be out for this game. He didn't practice Wednesday, so that is big. And then their guard, Trey Smith, he also didn't practice Wednesday. So they are banged up on the O-line heading against the best D-line in football. And this is crazy, man. So Will Anderson is questionable and Kamari Lassiter are questionable, but I assume they're going to play this week. Woody Marks is questionable as well. So this is a really interesting game. CJ Stroud gets a start, and this is a big game for CJ Stroud. Just don't turn the ball over. That's all I have to tell you, man. Don't turn the ball over because that's going to ignite this Arrowhead crowd that is already one of the best crowds, if not the best crowd in the NFL. Um, Chiefs are fighting for the playoff lives here. And a part of me has to assume Pat Mahomes fighting for his playoff life, Kelsey, Andy Reid, Spags fighting for the playoff lives. That means they have to win, right? I don't think I'm going to pick the Chiefs to win this game. I think the Texans win this game. The injuries on this offensive line for the Chiefs are insurmountable. Pat had a really good game against the Cowboys. Now the Chiefs are heading off a 10-game rest. They played on Thursday on Thanksgiving last week. The Texans played last Sunday, so the Chiefs had 3 extra days on them. That could play into the Chiefs' favor, but it doesn't really because the O-line is so banged up. I think this O-line is going to struggle, man, against this D-line. Chiefs already can't run the ball, so they're not going to be able to run the ball against this defensive unit. And honestly, as much as I like Rashee Rice and Kelsey, I think that receiving core for the Chiefs is underwhelming, especially against the secondary, against Kamari Lassiter, Stingley, Petrie, and then this linebacker core. Like, this Texans offense isn't good, but this defense is so special that it's going to win them this game in Kansas City. And I will be the biggest Texans fan on my way back home. Hopefully, I'll be back around 9, heading back home from the Buffalo and Bengals game. This is a tremendous game, and I think the Texans do their part in keeping the Chiefs out of the playoffs this year. This is a great game, and I can't wait to see how this game unfolds. I can't wait to see the storylines out of this game. I think Mahomes struggles due to the health on his O-line. I think the receiving core gets locked up, and I think the Chiefs won't be able to run the ball. And listen, the O-line for the Texans is shaky. It's one of the worst units in the NFL, but they have been playing slightly better recently. So really, this is a game of defenses. This is a defensive battle. I think this game goes under 41.5. And who wins? The better defense. And I think the Chiefs' defense has been really bad on third down. Luckily, they're facing a team who can't run the ball that well, and Woody Marks, who is questionable. It's going to be Chubbs, Marks, Nico Collins, and company. So, CJ Stroud, this is a big game for you. You can get revenge for the game you guys lost in the playoffs last year or 2 years ago. I forget when it was. So, I'm a huge Texans fan this weekend. Give me the Texans. I think the Texans win this game due to their defense and due to them having a healthier offense. I think the Chiefs struggle mightily on offense, and I think that offensive line makes Mahomes' day hell on Sunday Night Football. The Houston Texans do their part in taking the Chiefs out of the playoffs this year. The Texans, they moved to 8-5. The Chiefs fall to 6-7. Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson, Petrie Stingley Jr., and Lassiter, they do their jobs and they get the win for the Texans. CJ Stroud just don't turn the ball over and you guys win. So I picked the Texans to win outright. Moving on to the Monday night game, and then that is it for Week 14. The Eagles are heading into Los Angeles. Herbert is injured. He has a broken hand. He's expected to play. That's what Adam Schefter's saying. Jalen Carter is out against the Chargers, which is kind of big, man, because the Chargers O-line is banged up. No Slater, no Alt. That is a banged up O-line. Hampton and Haskins might return from the Monday night game, but who knows? Vidal and Patterson have been running the ball quite well from them. And honestly, the Chargers O-line, with having the injuries they've been having, have been running the ball quite well. So this is an interesting matchup. It's in LA. Eagles coming off a bad loss against the Bears on Friday night on Black Friday. This is tough for me. Vidal's been running the ball really well for the Chargers. The receiving core for the Chargers have been underwhelming. Man, I'm gonna be honest here. The Eagles can't really run the ball. Their offense looks out of sorts. The passing game, at least the AJ Brown, looks better than it has all year. Man, I gotta assume the Eagles win this game. They move to 9-4, just because of how banged up that Chargers O line is. But the Eagles are gonna be without Jalen Carter, so now it's just Jordan Phillips and company. Herbert with a broken hand, this banged up O line. I know they've looked good run blocking recently, but I can't, in good faith, pick the Chargers here. This is a big game for the Eagles. I think, despite the Chargers having a pretty good defense, I think the Eagles find a way to win this game. I think this game goes under as well. This is a defensive game, and I trust the Eagles' offense slightly more. Now, this is probably due to the past stuff. This isn't really due to this season. I just think the Eagles, in a big spot, get a big win. Because honestly, if the Eagles somehow lose this game, it's getting alarming. And I'm not going to fully count the Chargers out here, despite Herbert having a broken hand, despite them not having the running back 1 and running back 2, and despite them not having both of their tackles. I think the Chargers defense is pretty good. I obviously think they're really well coached. This is an interesting coaching matchup, as it is matchup. Like, it's an interesting unit matchup, but it's a really interesting coaching matchup. Sirianni versus Harbaugh. Who gets to win? I do want to pick the Chargers here, but I'm not. I'm going to pick the Eagles to get the win. Somehow they find a way. Despite having no Jalen Carter, I think their defense is good enough to cause problems for this offense that is banged up for the Chargers. So give me the Eagles. They find a way to win. They move to 9-4. The Chargers, they fall to 8-5. And depending on the Chiefs result, that is probably a result the Chiefs would want. So Eagles win. They find a way to win. That is it for Week 14. Here is a quick synopsis of all my picks heading into Week 14. I have the Bills beating the Bengals, but the Bengals covering plus 6.5. I have James Cook scoring. Dolphins versus Jets. Dolphins versus Jets in New Jersey. I have H. scoring. Steelers versus Ravens. I have Derrick Henry scoring. I have the Ravens beating the Steelers. Saints versus Bucks. I have Chris Godwin scoring. I have the Bucks covering. I have the Jaguars beating the Colts in Jacksonville as underdogs. I have BTJ scoring, Brian Thomas Jr. Titans versus Browns. I have the Browns winning 9-6. I have nobody scoring in that game. I hope I can bet that. Commanders versus Vikings. I have the Commanders beating the Vikings, which is probably square. But give me Deebo Samuel to score a touchdown. I have the Seahawks beating the Falcons, but the Falcons covering. Give me JSN to score a touchdown. I have Broncos beating the Raiders. I have the Broncos covering against the Raiders. I have the Broncos defensive score. I have the Bears versus Packers. I have the Packers winning with the Bears covering. I have Romeo Doubs scoring a touchdown. Rams versus Cardinals. I have the Rams covering. Give me Blake Corum to score a touchdown. I have the Texans being the Chiefs in Arrowhead as underdogs. Give me CJ Stroud to score a touchdown. And then I have the Eagles being the Chargers in LA in a close game. Give me AJ Brown to score a touchdown. So that is it for me for the NFL Week 14 slate and my prediction and picks. I will be in Buffalo for Bills versus Bengals. I can't wait for that game. Two of the best quarterbacks going head to head. Josh Allen never beating Joe Burrow. He gets his first victory against Joe Burrow this weekend. I can't wait to see that. Cherish it, boys. We're heading into Week 15 after this week. Cherish it. We are almost at playoff time. We are reaching fantasy playoffs right now, or next week. For me personally, it's next week. But man, boys, cherish these weeks, man, because when this season is over, it's going to be depressing. Not only for you, but for me. So It is your boy Matt Talk Sports. UFC, a really big pay-per-view card this week. The last pay-per-view of the year this weekend. I will be doing a TikTok on that card. So check it out. Follow me everywhere at Matt Talk Sports, Instagram and TikTok. Subscribe right now if you made this far in the video. Leave a like, comment, subscribe right now at Matt Talk Sports. So guess what? I'll be seeing you for my full week 14 recap. I will tell you my experience about the Bills game. I'll recap all the other games, and I can't wait to see you guys again. I'll see you guys Monday. Let's have a great weekend betting, and let's enjoy this week 14 slate. I'll see you guys Monday.